So, how you doing, everybody? Keelan here from Horizon Speakers. I have the great pleasure of speaking with Mr. Kevin Green today. Kevin is a self-made multi-millionaire and social entrepreneur who's featured on Channel 4's Secret Millionaire recently, I think maybe 2 years ago or so. He's one of the UK's largest residential property owners, and I believe he has over 400 properties in his portfolio. And he can tell you himself about how much cash that's spinning off. So for anyone out there who's interested in generating cash or rebuilding their wealth and developing a business, I think you should listen up to Kevin and what he has to say. So Kevin, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with Horizon today. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine. Thanks, Keelan. Thanks for asking me.
You're over in Wales there at the moment. What's the weather like? Is it as miserable as it is here in Ireland?
It's gone a bit wintry today, so not like it was.
Yeah, so it's so long to the summer, I think, for us here. But I said that a great time of the year to refocus and get planning your businesses and strategizing and be attending seminars and conferences, all that kind of stuff. So I think recently I saw you speak there at the National Achievers Congress in London. I was very impressed with what you had to say, and the reaction from the crowd was very, very strong. And I understand you're a very, very busy guy these days. Could you, just for the benefit of people out there, let them know about what kind of stuff you're up to at the moment, or what's Kevin Green's life like in terms of business and creation and speaking, etc.
My core business is still what floats my boat. I do a bit of speaking on the side, as you correctly say, and I enjoy that. But I'm a nuts and bolts type of guy, and I like pure business. The property side's been a bit interesting recently. We bought property way under market value. I know in Ireland you've had a massive hit and drop in prices there on values of property. Fairly similar here. The getting hold of the money has been the problem for most people. I've got round that really because I'm my own bank, and that's come into its own in the last few months, whereby I'm lending money to people that are buying property from me. So that's a very, very interesting principle.
We could do with that service over here, I think, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, as you know, well, I'm sure you're informed to a fair extent about what's happening in Ireland, but banks aren't lending. This is a critical issue. And property prices have tanked. They're probably at roughly 60%. That's my estimate anyway, about where they are from between the peak of the market around 2007 and now. So, for most people, for most investors, or just people who bought maybe one or two houses, maybe not, they're not kind of heavy investors, but they're probably dealing with a negative equity situation there, and possibly the cash flow is either very, very tight or possibly negative as well. So I think listen to yourself talking about becoming your own bank. That's certainly a very interesting concept. But yeah, just on the whole area of raising finance for someone who's in that situation, particularly in Ireland. I mean, I'm a big believer myself in kind of seller finance and kind of more creative forms of finance, and probably going to become the norm here in Ireland. Never mind, the other markets. But what's your thoughts there for someone in that situation here in Ireland?
If you focus just on property, it's very difficult. I'm a bank, and what banks like to see is that you've got cash flow, and you must create that, and you must create that through bolt-on business. About 60% of what I do is property and property related, but 40% isn't. And that's trading type business. It's very simple. A business where I buy a unit and I sell it for more than I pay for it, And that is something which people need to focus on, is get back to basics, I believe, and look at what the market needs and supply that at an affordable price, with a bit of profit in it for yourself, and run that business. And that's a lot of what we do when we're helping people as well with coaching towards creating an environment where the banks will come back and speak to you. Because once you've got cash flow, the banks are interested. If you go in with just, I maybe want to do this and buy a property and make money, they're almost saying, go away.
Developing a business, it's all about cash flow. Whether your balance sheet is, strong or weak, that's one thing. But I think having the cash flow and coming in every month is kind of that's kind of your lifesaver, so to speak, in terms of a business. But I think it's quite interesting that we're talking today on September the 6th here, and around us we're seeing huge volatility in the markets. I don't know how much interest or attention you pay to it on a daily basis. I certainly have a look at it myself. I see gold is up again today, high. It's up over 1900. It might even have come back down again. So obviously there's a huge amount of people rushing towards that. It's seen as a safe haven. And at the same time, stocks are taking a bit of a hammering. Property markets, as we know, or property prices, as we know, are low in Ireland. So I think, Well, building the way I see it is kind of a long-term game. A lot of people are also tempted to kind of trade markets now, particularly right now, whether it's buying gold or, silver, taking a punt on the stock market. I'm just wondering what's your own view on that, and do you trade or do you kind of stick to your kind of knitting, so to speak?
I'm not big into the stock market, but I am big into gold and platinum and precious metals. And I have bought when it's at lower price. I wouldn't, and I'm not buying right now because it has gained a huge value, and the market is pushing for the exact reasons you say, Keelan. People find it safe. And gold is a long-term strategy to put money into when you've got spare cash flow. It's certainly not a strategy I would employ to create short-term revenue. I would look about more parking it there as a safe haven and buying strategically to that. And that's exactly what I do. I love gold. I've got gold bars. I like them. Safer than a bank. We used to say, if you want to play safe, you leave your money in a bank. You can't really say that anymore because your bank could go bust. But with gold, you've got something solid, it's yours, and they're not going to take it away. So I can see the benefit. Stocks and shares, I personally don't know enough about it. I've had a little dabble. You're asking somebody else to look after your finances, and I'd rather look after my own.
I'm completely in agreement that, you have to be very, very careful with stocks and trading the markets. I've seen more people lose their shirt than make money. You might get lucky once or twice, but if you haven't got a kind of defined strategy and one that's probably more idealistically kind of medium to longer term, you're going to get toasted, I think, so yeah, you have to be very, very careful. But yeah, well, so one thing that's of interest, I think, to me, and certainly to a lot of investors here in Ireland, and a lot of just ordinary people, want to say that everyone in Ireland was buying, property, as you know yourself, going back 3 or 4 years ago and beyond. So essentially, their asset values have probably just fallen off the cliff. They're in a situation where their cash flow from their income, be it through a job or be it through property, might be tightening. So rebuilding wealth, kind of regaining ground and rebuilding wealth is the key focus for a lot of households and a lot of people out there. Just for what it's worth, what are your kind of, I suppose, your ABCs? How would you approach, you in that situation yourself, how would you go about approaching rebuilding your wealth?
You've got to look about maximizing the income from what you've got as your asset base, first of all, and maybe even cutting your losses where need be. As far as rental property, for instance, a lot of what I do is multi-let units. So put it into a house of multiple occupation, get into social housing. Maybe we can, force the income a little bit higher so that we can get the yield at least washing its face. If we can't do that, we've got to get rid of it. At the end of the day, if it's burning a hole in your pocket and there's no way you can mitigate that, then the only out for me is to get rid of it at the end of it, because I don't see the Irish market or the UK market turning around for some time. That's my personal view. I think that interest rates will stay low for some time, which is a bit of a plus point. But, you can't afford to be holding a lame duck in a medium and long term. So it has to be subjectively, and some of that can be quite painful. I've helped certain people out on that one, and it's not an easy task. It's almost impossible to get money from the bank. The only time the bank will lend you in Ireland, and I've got property in Ireland, in my view, is they'll only lend it to people who don't really need it. So it's a difficult one. Where I have found the banks very good is in listening to maybe rationalizing a payoff of a loan. There are a lot of instances where if you are in negative equity, and going back to that, they will take a settlement sum on that mortgage. And I found the best way to do that is to use my debt management business, or if you're a third party, use a business that can negotiate on your behalf. The banks will listen to that, even though you may happen to own it more than they'll listen to yourself. So that's the first protocol. As far as raising finance, you've got to get cash flow business in place. It's the number one aim. And rather than myself, and I'm a bit of a blunt talker, rather than trade on the stock market or do foreign currency, foreign exchange trading, or whatever it might be, I'm a pure nuts and bolts guy. As I said, I like pure business. I like setting up a business with two objectives. One, to create cash flow, and two, to create value in that business so that when I sell it, I get a handsome profit of capital in my pocket for the sale. So that's my focus. And there's a million and one businesses out there and opportunities out there. It doesn't have to be property that we can put together. And it may be some dream that we've had, inside ourselves, our thoughts and mind and energy for years, and we haven't had the guts to put it in place. There's more entrepreneurs made in a recession than at any other time in history. You have to be looking subjectively. And I agree with you, Keelan. There are wonderful opportunities, but cash is king. We've got to get cash flow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's an important point. And I think, looking back, hindsight is great in 2020 and all that kind of stuff. But looking back on the Irish property market, a lot of it was speculation on rising capital values and not, if you look at the yields, they were tiny. The yields were so tight. It was very, very hard to really make a, cash flow business out of it. So we were just kind of chasing rising capital values month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year. And hence, I think the whole thing came tumbling down.
I've never done that. Every property has had to wash its face, and that's one of the golden rules. Another problem, and we've got to be looking at the up and down sides, is people were taking private drawings from capital rather than cash flow. So they would remortgage a property in Ireland just to pay for the luxuries. And when one starts doing that, one is an absolute fool. We cannot do that. Okay, we have to be buying, luxuries, private drawings from cash.
In Horizon, we've been really keen to run something on the kind of cash creation, wealth creation side of things, but we felt there wasn't really an appetite in the market. There was a kind of an underlying need, but I don't know if people would necessarily come along. Now I feel, people are keen to kind of get going again. They've kind of come to terms with the fact that, yeah, they're probably dealing with some debt, be it personal, business, property related, whatever. And I think, getting back in the game and looking for new creative ways of growing wealth and generating cash flow and maybe even developing a business, it certainly, I think, is on everyone's radar. So yeah, just if you could tell us a little bit about the Cash and Wealth Creation Day that we're going to run on the 5th of November. I suppose what typically would people expect to get from attending that day, and could you just kind of break it down for people there?
It's not a great get-rich-quick scheme. What I'm going to share is how you can make solid cash. And whether it be €500, 1,000, 2,000, and start like that. What is important is how we can get return on time investment very high. So how we can create that cash for the least work from ourselves, but make it sustainable and passive. And that's one of the key focuses when I set businesses up. I don't mind putting in a bit of effort to get it off the ground, but then I want that business paying me. And I'll be showing some examples of what I've done, both with property, service industries to property that I own, and also other high cash trading businesses. And it really does give people ideas then. The diamonds are quite often under your feet. It just takes somebody, and taking that cover off and revealing perhaps some roots to that into mining those diamonds. And that's what I'm there for. And that's what people will enjoy, is that they'll take away perhaps only one or two key thoughts, but those one or two key thoughts will be strategies that will put massive cash in their pocket in the medium term.